Hi, everyone, and welcome to Standard Uranium's live investment summit today, hosted by SIX. We are joined today by John Bay, President and CEO, and Sean Hilliker, Project Geologist. Sean and John will walk us through a company presentation, and then we'll be accepting questions live. You can submit your questions at any time on the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of the screen. And as always, the summit is being recorded and will be available to watch afterwards on six.com. So without further ado, I'll hand it off to you, John.
Thanks, Dasha. And welcome everyone who's taken the time to join us this morning. Today, Sean and I are going to walk you through two things. Number one, a brief company presentation. We have many new viewers joining us today, so we're going to give you an overview of the company, and then we're going to dig into our phase 2 drill program, which is going on right now. So let's get started. Slide number 1, you can see that's a picture of our Davidson River project in the summertime. Slide number 2 is a legal disclaimer. I'll ask you to come back and look at that. We are going to be making some forward-looking statements today. And right into slide 3, we'll get into the macro story. So the macro story right now is very bullish for uranium. Many of you who are following the uranium story will have noticed several things happening in the past few months. Number one, we're seeing the U.S. government get behind this. Both parties are supporting nuclear energy and the green energy future, which is fantastic to see. We are seeing things like the spot price has yet to make any positive momentum. In fact, it's actually going down, but at the same time, the supply and demand scenario globally is just getting more and more incredible. Nuclear is becoming part of ESG, and it's being recognized that way globally. And we're starting to see investment funds starting to get involved in equity positions, not only in junior companies like ourselves, but in larger firms and on ETFs and so forth. So we are seeing big money starting to move into the uranium space and the nuclear space, which is exciting. We think the next several years is going to be fantastic for the nuclear space and uranium companies. So we're really looking forward to moving forward with that. If you take a look at our vision and our mission, you can see this map of Canada and, of course, Saskatchewan and the North Saskatchewan. The yellow area there is the Athabasca Basin, and you can see our 3 projects, Davidson River in the southwest, our Sundog in the north, and our East Basin projects. At Standard Uranium, what we're trying to do is make a high-grade uranium basement-hosted discovery, and by doing that, we're going to drive incredible shareholder value, and that's what we're trying to do. We're planning to find the fuel to power a clean energy future. Slide 5 here gives you a snapshot of the southwest corner where our Davidson River project is, and we're really going to be talking about this specific part of the basin. You can see the areas in green, that's NextGen, the areas in pink, that's Fission, and you can see those red stars, the Spitfire, Arrow, and Triple R. Those all lie on the Patterson Lake conductor, and we believe that same conductor runs from the east to the west and runs right through our Davidson River project, and we're in the process of proving that out right now. We did so with drill results from our phase 1 project, and we're continuing to do so with our phase 2 drill program. This company snapshot gives you an idea of who we are. So we're a junior uranium company. We took this company public on May 4th of last year. We went right after that and raised money. We raised two capital raises. Actually, the first one was $4.5 million, followed up by a $3.4 million raise. Both of those are to drive this company forward and continue to explore. We went right into a summer drill program last year, drilled over 5,000 meters at our Davidson River project. And we're drilling again right now. So we're fully funded, fully permitted, and driving forward with our drill plans. Short-term momentum of short-term ideas that could really drive this company. Number 1 is making a high-grade uranium discovery. Number 2 is getting our project in the north, our Sundog, getting that permitted for drilling next year. And I'm doing some ground gravity work this spring. And we're also going to be permitting our stuff on the eastern side of the basin. So all those things should be coming forward with Standard in 2021. Looking at this chart right here, some picture of the Lassonde curve. What that's basically showing you is we are right at the start of the speculation phase, which means we're pre-discovery, which is a remarkable time to invest in a company. We compare ourselves to, where NextGen was pre-discovery, where Fission was, where ISO was. Those companies were all, 10, 20 cent stocks that are now in the multiple dollars. And that's because they made a high-grade uranium discovery, and that's what our plan is. Some say, we could be just an area play. We're in the same region. Well, that's not really true. We're not just only in the same region. We're actually in the same rock formations, and we believe we're on the same conductor as those previous discoveries we talked about. Behind that, those other projects made their discoveries during bear markets. We believe, entering into a great bull market, not just for uranium, but for mining in general for the next many years. And we believe making a discovery during a bull market is going to drive incredible value for our shareholders. I'm going to talk a bit about our team, starting with our board and our management team. So we've assembled our team specifically to make an exploration discovery in the southwest corner. So you'll see the team we've picked up. Started off with adding Neil McCallum as our VP of Exploration. Neil has spent 15 years specifically searching for uranium in the Athabasca Basin, all over the basin, but in the southwest corner as well. We then added Garrett Ainsworth. Garrett is quite well known as a geologist in this region. Garrett was the geologist who made the radioactive boulder discovery, which led to Arrow's RRR project. He then joined NextGen, was instrumental in moving along the Arrow project while being at NextGen as their VP of Exploration for many years. And then we added Sean Hilliker this past summer, who spent 5 years with NextGen as their geo. He was instrumental in working with the Arrow project as well. He spent 5 years doing he did his master's degree on the Arrow project, so he knows those rocks about as good as anybody in the world. We've also added Blair Jordan as the lead independent director. He's a corporate banker as well as a lawyer. And Ken Judge joins as a director this past summer as well. Ken and I worked together for 15 plus years. Ken is a specialist in M&A activity. He's a lawyer by trade as well. And on the next slide, you'll see a few more of our members. We've added Martin Bajic, who is our CFO, a very capable CFO specializing in junior mining companies. Galen McNamara also came to us from NextGen, where he worked on the Arrow project quite closely with Sean and Garrett. And then we've added Lori Thomas, most recently as our VP of Investor Relations. Lori spent many years, 10 plus years with Cameco, and most recently with UEX as an IR specialist. So we've got a remarkable team for a company like ours, and we're really excited to dig into our exploration program. And I'm going to turn this over to Sean right now to sort of walk us through the projects in the Southwest region and sort of walk us through, why this is exciting, what other companies are around us, what they've done, and what we believe we are about to do. So, Sean, why don't you take over the slides and hop in right now, and I'll put myself on mute.
Sure, sounds good. So as John had mentioned, there's been most of the recent high-grade discoveries in the Athabasca Basin have been focused in the southwest corner, namely along the Patterson Lake corridor, including Fission's RRR, NextGen's Arrow, and then the Spitfire zone. And then, as John had mentioned before, how that Patterson Lake corridor kind of bends up through our Davidson River property. The Smart Lake zone there, you can see on the map there, actually lies along that as well. So there's a lot of pounds in the ground that we know about in the southwest Athabasca Basin. And you can see the number of drill holes on those different properties of the kind of the major players in exploration in that region. And we're just barely scratched the surface so far at our Davidson River property. So it's very exciting to be drilling there again. This property hasn't seen any drill holes historically, and it's a large property with a lot of kilometers of untested conductive corridors that are great exploration targets. So, we're ecstatic to be able to break ground on that property for the first time. And then, of course, having, over 500 million pounds in our neighboring properties is a great thing for us as well. So moving on to more the geological aspect of things, as we've been kind of alluding to in the last few slides, our working theory right now is what we call the Clearwater Domain mirror theory. So the Clearwater Domain, you can see it's a large geologic feature trending northeast, coming through. And the Patterson Lake corridor bends around that feature and then comes up through our Davidson River property. So the main theory here, there's recent studies going on with the Geological Survey of Canada and looking at the implications of the Clearwater Domain as it relates to the high-grade uranium deposits in this region. So there's theories going out there now that the Clearwater Domain is a really possible uranium source for the deposits in this region, and as well as a driving factor between the hydrothermal fluid systems related to the deposits and the heat as well needed to drive those systems. So very interesting geology in this area, and obviously very prolific for high-grade uranium as relating to the Athabasca Basin. So zooming in now and looking specifically at our Davidson River project, in 2018 and 19, the company laid the foundation for starting our exploration programs on the property by doing a number of different geophysical surveys. So in the Athabasca Basin, we don't have any rocks or outcrop at surface. So these kinds of deposits are what we call blind deposits. So we have to explore undercover, and we can't actually see those rocks at surface. So what these geophysical surveys do is allow us to kind of see through that cover and get a sense of what the basement rocks are doing underneath there. And in this area of the world, we're looking for high-grade basement-hosted uranium. So that's obviously very important. We're looking for these fluid highways in those rocks that these uranium-bearing fluids can travel along and then drop out, hundreds of millions of pounds into an economic deposit. So what we do is overlay all these different surveys and basically look where all these different ingredients kind of line up and make a great drill target for a uranium deposit. So you can see there's multiple different criteria laid out on that map there. It's a little busy, it's a little bit complicated, but what we do is look where all these things kind of line up and then test that with the drill hole. So we have very good targets along the Warrior Trend. That's what we started with in phase 1 last summer, and had a lot of technical success identifying some major structures in the basement. And then, as John alluded to as well, just the same sorts of rock types that we see along the Patterson Lake corridor, and similar structures and containing graphite and sulfide as well. So zooming in a bit more and talking a bit more about our phase 1 program, you can see all the different drill holes, 13 drill holes we drilled along the Warrior Trend last summer, testing some of our best looking geophysical targets. So we drilled just over 5,600 meters in those 13 holes. And as I said, had lots of technical success, identified some fairly wide zones of structural disturbance in the basement rocks, great places or great things to see, and preferential places where these fluids will come in and drop out the uranium. So lots to follow up on with phase 2. We did refine our targets on the Warrior Trend for this year, and then we're also planning on drilling the Saint Trend, which is just to the northeast of Warrior. So for phase 2, you can see our target areas on the map there in the red circles. We are currently testing the Skyline target with our first couple drill holes during phase 2 right now as we speak. And we're also going to move up and test the Meadow and Levy targets as well. So the Meadow target is designed to follow up on a uranium anomaly we had in the overlying Devonian Phanerozoic rocks above the basement. So trying to chase that down and follow up on the structure that might be related to that. Whereas the Levy target is designed to test the eastern edge of the corridor. So the edges of these corridors are very important. That's where these softer graphite-rich rocks kind of butt up against the harder country rocks, and then we get nice competency contrast, and that's where these rocks like to deform and break open, which is just what we're looking for. And if you actually look at the Patterson Lake corridor, the Arrow deposit sits on one edge of the Patterson Lake corridor, and the Triple R deposit sits on the other edge. So testing the edges of these things is extremely important for these sorts of favorable structural and geochemical zones that we're looking for. So the Levy targets there will test the eastern edge of the corridor, which we have not intersected yet. We did intersect the western edge in phase 1, and so now we're going to test the eastern edge with phase 2. Our Skyline target down there to the southeast is following up on some of the major structure that I was talking about. There's those kind of burgundy red dotted lines on the map you can see coming through there. Those are interpreted cross-cutting structures. And we did actually hit those in hole number 9 and hole number 11 during phase 1. So we're following up on those good structures we saw in the basement at depth in hole number 11 and hole number 9 with those targets. And as I mentioned, we're also going to move up later in the season once things hopefully start to warm up a little and drill our Saint Trend, which geophysically is very exciting. It looks strikingly similar to the Arrow deposit in that regard. So all of our technical team is really excited to get a drill spinning up there as well. And moving on now to our Sundog uranium project. as John mentioned, we're planning on doing some work up here, some additional geophysics work this year. So we're going to go do some ground gravity up here to kind of refine our targets a little bit further again in preparation for a drill program. So in this area of the world, historically, we've been people have been exploring for lower grade Beaver Lodge style uranium deposits, which are relatively low grade, they're basement hosted, and have been mined in the past. So on the map there, the yellow diamond, you can see the historical Gunner uranium mine up there. So that's in the Beaver Lodge domain. It's all basement hosted, but what we're doing now, like these areas haven't been well explored at all for the last almost 40 years or so. And so with our modern understanding of unconformity related uranium deposits and modern exploration techniques, we're taking a fresh look at this area, and what we're targeting here is actually the same thing. So traditional unconformity related uranium deposits with basement roots. So at surface here, you can see our different target areas, the Sky target area, Haven, and Java. We did some exploration work up there in the fall last year and sent a team up there to kind of confirm a lot of these historical results up here. And what we found was off-scale radioactivity at surface, and took some samples, and some of which returned up to just over 3.5% U3O8 at surface in the sandstone. So that's great to see. And what we're going to follow up on here is, in the traditional model of things in the Athabasca Basin, lots of times you have mineralization up into the sandstone, right at that unconformable contact between the sandstone and the crystalline basement, and then the basement roots. So what we're going to do on Sundog is go up and drill and test these geophysical anomalies, looking for high-grade uranium in the basement rocks and at the unconformity. So using our modern techniques up in this area to unearth where these high-grade occurrences at surface are actually coming from. So just zooming in a little bit on the Java and Haven targets, there's a couple photos. There's some yellow mineralization on the picture labeled B on the right-hand side. That's visible uranium mineralization at surface. And we were exploring these radioactive trends, which extend for few tens of meters at surface, which is great. And you can see on the slide there as well some of the highest grades we got from those target areas. So 3.5%, 1.7, and 0.7 U3O8 respectively, which is great to see right at surface. And now moving over to the Eastern Basin, the same sort of principle applies here as far as exploration goes, looking for traditional unconformity related uranium deposits with basement roots. So the great thing about these projects as well, just with the developments in mining and things like that, there's minimal sandstone cover. And so all our targets are relatively shallow to the basement, which is great from a mining perspective and development perspective. So you can see our three different properties there: Atlantic, Canary, and Ascent. And then you'll also notice IsoEnergy's Hurricane Zone is kind of right smack dab in the middle there. And all those little blue dots on the map there are historical drill holes. So there's been a lot of drilling. Obviously, the eastern side of the basin has been heavily explored for uranium. And so you can see up on our properties there's relatively few drill holes as well. So lots to explore over here, lots of good looking conductors and geophysical targets, as well as some geochemical anomalies in lake sediments and things like that too. So very excited to go get drills spinning over on this side as well, and tons of potential for exploration on the east side.
Thanks, Sean. Let me hop back in here. So looking at our share structure right now, we began trading on the TSX Venture under the symbol STND on May the 4th. In January, we completed our OTC QB listing, and we're trading there, and we've been trading in Germany on the Frankfurt as well. Currently, we have 92.7 million shares out. We were at 90, but we've just had some warrants exercised in the past week, and our market cap is somewhere between $17 and $20 million, depending on the daily fluctuations happening right now. Looking at strategic shareholders, it's important to make note of these three funds. They're all specific uranium funds. Sachem Cove was early believers in our company. They joined us in 2018, made a nice investment. It came in and they've been investing all along. L2 Capital, led by Marcelo Lopez, came in our 2019 capital raise, as did Tribeca with Guy Keller. So we're really proud to have those three major uranium funds invested in us and really believing in where we're headed here. We are going to come back to the phase 2 drill program at Davidson, and we're going to spend a lot of time probably answering questions about that. So stay tuned. We'll get right back to that. Here's a bit of information on our corporate side of things. You can see since we started, the graph on the left sort of shows you our trading volumes. When we first started trading in May, it was quite low. But as we progressed over the past 6 months, our volumes are now trading significantly higher, averaging almost 1 million shares traded today when you combine the TSX Venture plus the other markets where shares are traded. And you can see, we started trading at 15 cents when we went public, and we're right around 20 cents right now, and we're just starting our drill program. So things are looking very positive for our shareholders right now. Slide number 20 is our final slide, number 19 here. Just basically summarizing on what we've just told you. We're a proven team with making exploration success in the specific region of the Athabasca Basin. We've got fantastic land package with 3 major projects. We went public in May. We've done a couple nice financings. We're well financed right now, well permitted to continue our exploration program. We're beginning our phase 2 drill program right now, which is going to continue towards the end of March. And in the summertime, we'll be back again, following up with some of the regions we couldn't get to by our roads. One of the couple things we didn't talk on right now is that we have just completed an access trail, so we can drive right to our project site now, which is bringing our costs down and allowing us to drill even further for keeping our budget in check. And one other thing that wasn't mentioned was our relationships with our First Nations partners, which is excellent. You may have followed us on some of our social media channels. If you haven't, I encourage you to pick us up on Twitter or YouTube or go to our website. Sean and I have been doing a lot of videos. There's many more coming out. I'll be videoing some questions with some shareholders this week, and we're going back up to the project site next week. So look forward to that. We're going to be getting you in to see what's actually happening with those drills turning and what's happening in our core dome. So we'll come back to that. I'm going to open this up now to questions on the Q&A side. So I'm not sure if Dasha wants to hop back in here, but I'm guessing we're going to probably be heading right to phase 2 drill program and questions to start coming in here. So let's go to Q&A and sort of see what we're getting here.
Hi, I'm happy to jump right in. There's lots of questions here on the Q&A from the attendees. So Terry has a question. He says, you've conducted extensive geophysical analysis, and this is your second drill program. Given everything that you've learned about the project, other than hopefully hitting uranium, what do you expect to see and learn in this winter drill program?
Oh, great. Well, that's a great technical question. So I'm going to pass that to Sean, and he can sort of walk you through, outside of a uranium discovery, the other things that we're hoping to really add to our knowledge base of this region. So go ahead, Sean.
For sure, Terry, that's a great question. So as I was kind of alluding to earlier, finding these kind of, fluid highways in the basement is extremely important, because you're not going to find a uranium deposit where you don't have structure. So finding these major structures and following up on them, they're not going to be blown out everywhere. There's a lot of structure around these other uranium deposits that, are essentially barren, but there's, really kind of honing in on these zones where they're reactivated and essentially more broken up, and, just have the right chemical conditions as well, would be something that we really want to do. So really refining those, we're drilling a tiny little drill hole in this conductor that's 10 kilometers long. It's essentially a needle in a haystack, but you can use that. You actually gain a ton of information from one drill hole. So it's once we drill a few and continue testing, then we can step along and really narrow down where the deposit, is likely to sit. So you gain a ton of geological information from the drill hole, and we're hoping to see, more alteration, more structure, and, basically vectoring us into that right area.
Great, thank you. Terry actually follows up to ask, assuming you do find uranium in the basement at Sundog, given all the surrounding water, would a substantial deposit be?
Another great question. if I don't know, Terry, if you're familiar with the Collins Bay and Eagle Point uranium deposits over on the east side. So that was a high-grade basement-hosted deposit and kind of sat underneath Wollaston Lake and at Collins Bay there. So it and that was mined successfully, safely under the lake. So there's definitely the technology to do so safely. It would be a traditional mining style, not open pit. There'd be no, damming of the Lake Athabasca or doing anything like that. We'd sink a shaft. It would be traditional sort of long hole and stope mining, just, leaving a substantial crown pillar there that, there's no issues with water there and not disturbing that lake in any way. So yes, it's possible. Yes, it's been done in the Athabasca Basin. So, if we make an economic discovery there of a deposit, then 100% it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you. Graham is asking, earlier in the presentation, you showed that NextGen, ISO, and others have drilled 600 plus drill holes. How early into their programs did you make that discovery? And, or in other words, given the small size of your drilling program, why should I be excited?
Sure. Well, I can jump in here. Both the Arrow deposit and the Triple R deposit, they made those discoveries fairly early on in comparison to other places in the basin. I believe those, first exciting drill holes were right around hole number 25 to hole 30, somewhere in that range. Other parts of the Athabasca Basin, it could be much later than that. So we're pretty excited about where we are. And on top of that, we've got the knowledge base that those companies didn't have when they started their programs. Like Fission had some great ideas of where they were going because of the radioactive boulders that were nearby. But NextGen's Arrow, Sean can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was a blind discovery. And they didn't have some of the background information that we now have based on the team that we put together who actually have seen all the rock formations at NextGen. So we're in a really good spot knowing what we're looking for and knowing what they found there. And Sean, you may want to add to that.
No, you pretty much hit the nail on the head, John. I mean, not only that, but knowing when to walk away too. I mean, it's really important to know the signs of when you're close or, when to walk away and test somewhere different. There's a ton of great geophysical targets on the Davidson River property. And, we're just kind of scratching the surface. So that's why you should be excited. There's, we know there's pounds in the ground in this area and we got a ton of great targets and we're just getting into it now. So it's at the most exciting stage, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Oz is asking, how long does a typical drill hole take to complete? How many meters drilled per hour?
Good. That's a great question for Sean. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, easy one. It usually takes, we're drilling about 450 meters on average. Like I said, we're looking for the basement hosted high grade stuff. That's our main goal. So you look at, the Arrow deposit extends to about 1 kilometer depth and then right up to about 100 meters below surface. So drilling on an angle, we can get a lot more information that way. So it takes about a week to 10 days to drill a hole that deep. It's also really challenging conditions in this part of the world too. The Eastern Basin is a lot easier logistically and just as far as drilling goes. But the guys average probably 40 to 50 meters, sometimes more per shift, which is 12 hours. So it would take about an hour to drill, a 3 meter run or less, depending on how deep you are, but about a week to 10 days.
And also compare the summertime drill programs to the winter programs, which have much more challenges. Maybe you could speak to that, Sean.
Absolutely. Like, in the winter, it was minus 50 for a week up there when we started. So heaters and anytime you're dealing with water in that kind of weather, that can cause issues. But the guys have been grinding up there. The aggressive team is super, super good. They've been drilling in this area. I've worked with them personally for the last 6 years in this area. And, if anyone can get it done, they can. So it's great to have them on our team. And, just the logistics of everything is more challenging in the winter. The road is great. It gets us there, saves us a ton of money that we can then put into meters in the ground. It's a long, bumpy ride, but that's the thing that's nice about winter is you can push those roads and that works. So it's kind of a give and take, and it's always exciting.
Yeah, of course. So our next question is, what is the lithologic assemblage at the Warrior and other deposits in the area?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So I did my master's on the Arrow deposit, like John mentioned. It's a really interesting group of rocks there in this area. It's not typical. It's completely different than the east side of the basin. Again, you're still looking for structures and graphite that can, provide your reductant. It's without getting too crazy into the technical stuff, but garnet bearing gneisses. They're all Paleo-Proterozoic age, so 2.5 billion year old basement rocks hosting these things that are cross-cut by these major structural zones. And that's kind of the big thing we're looking for, is these deep-seated structures. So you have packages of rocks with graphite and sulfides in them, and those kind of alternating with garnet-bearing, high metamorphic grade gneisses. So really, and they're all full of blue quartz. They're really beautiful. It's and the alteration too is quite wild. So it's kind of packages of metasediments and orthogneisses like that, if that makes any sense.
Great, thank you. Terry has another question. He says, you mentioned you have found structures. Are the structures you mentioned specific to your uranium deposits? If so, how common are these structures in the basin?
Another good question, Terry. These structures are fairly common. As you know, looking at the maps and stuff, there's a lot of conductors that can be identified. Not all of them are uranium bearing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not specifically related to uranium. The same type of structure can host an orogenic gold deposit. So basically what we're looking for is the right chemical conditions to overlap with those structural zones. So the structural zones are paramount to that and allowing those, that reaction to kind of take place. But what we're really looking for is that coincident with the right chemical conditions to produce an economic deposit.
All right, thank you. Oz is asking, if Sundog or Eastern Basin projects find deposits before Davidson River, would the priority change, or is the Davidson River potential so great that would always be number one?
Well, I can answer that one for sure. I think if we found a deposit that was mineable economic, we would definitely be shifting focus, but we're not going to be stepping away from the Davidson River project. The Davidson River project, to me, is the most exciting project in the whole Athabasca Basin that doesn't have a deposit found on it yet. And when you look at this map we're looking at right now on slide 9, you can see where Spitfire and Arrow and Triple R are all in that Patterson Lake conductor. And that's about about a 5 or 6 kilometer stretch there between those deposits. If you mirror over onto our project, our project is about 12 kilometers in length, and that Patterson Lake conductor, we believe, runs right through our project. It's possible that we could have, make discoveries that could go on to match all 3 of those deposits in our project. So we're super excited about that. We're going to continue to follow the science and all the detective clues we find from our drill programs and continue to explore the Davidson River, even if we have another discovery at one of our other deposits. And let me also point out, right now there's 50 or 60 uranium companies globally right now. We're starting to see more companies turn into uranium companies and start to show up. With success on other projects, we are quite confident we'll have people lining up to work with us and JV those and spend money on those with us. That's another exciting part about working in this region as the uranium market's just about to take off. Hope that answers your question.
Great, thank you. There's a few questions here about timeline. So Cornelia says, with the labs backed up and so many drill programs ongoing, when do you reasonably expect some results from your current drills?
Sure. Sean, why don't you go ahead and answer that?
Yep, sure. It depends, like you said, on how busy the lab is. Saskatchewan Research Council that we use here in Saskatoon is really good. They're, they have a high production rate. Usually it ranges between anywhere from like 3 to 8 weeks, depending on how busy they are and how big your shipments are. So, with our 5,000 meter program or 4,500 meters, we'll send out probably one big shipment, and then we'll hopefully get all that back consistently in about a month's time after we send it in. So, end of April into May, hoping sooner the better, obviously, and then we can use those results to tweak our second half of phase 2, where we're going to Bronco and probably doing some more on Warrior and Saint as well. So
yeah, at this point, we started this drill program in the first week of February. We anticipate, if all goes smoothly, we'll wrap it up towards the end of March, maybe the first week into April. And as Sean said, it could be a month to a few weeks after that when we start getting assay results back, which we'll release to the market.
Yeah.
Oh, great. All right. Well, Hugo is wondering if you have access to the previous drilling results.
Okay. Well, let me start off by telling you a bit of a story, Hugo. Number one, the Standard Uranium Davidson River project you see here on the left, we are the first company to ever drill for uranium on this project. So as you can see, the other projects have got over 1,000 drill holes on this. This all started right around 2012. And when Alpha Minerals, actually Garrett Ainsworth, made the radioactive boulder discovery, that started the staking rush. And a lot of these projects were all staked up. And Standard Uranium's project was also staked by a geologist by the name of Jody DeRouge. At the time, Jody was a director of Fission Uranium, and he offered the Davidson River project to Fission. Fission had just made their discovery of their RRR project, so they passed. So when Jody left Fission as a director and president, he was sued actually by Fission. They wanted the Davidson River project back. So our project between 2013 to 2017 was tied up in courts roughly for that whole time, while Fission made their RRR project grew. NextGen made their Arrow discovery. PurePoint made their Spitfire. This was all happening, and Standard Uranium could not be explored because it was tied up in courts. So there was no drill holes, no previous drill holes to look at when we started our work on the Davidson River. But exciting, and to our benefit, we have assembled a team of geologists that know the rocks very well, from Fission's rocks to NextGen's rocks. So we know about all those drill holes that were done on their projects, and we're using that knowledge to benefit us as we drill our Davidson River project.
Great. Thank you for that. So keep submitting your questions if you have any. This is the last one we have at the moment. So we have Shazad is asking, what would be the plan moving forward if a discovery is made during this drill program, as well as if not?
Okay, great question. So our plan, and everything is planned out just for that discovery being made, is to continue to drill further. I mean, we sort of look at where we are now as compared to where NextGen was prior to their discovery. Once you make that discovery, you'll spend time seeing how big that deposit can be. So that means we would expand our drill programs, the ones coming up, the ones in the next few years, and continue to see how large that deposit can be. And we're really happy right now that our neighbors, NextGen, just announced a big financing yesterday. They did their feasibility study. They are planning to move forward and build a mine and a mill right beside us. And that's excellent news for Standard Uranium, because if we, build that, if we make a discovery, build that deposit, the sky's the limit as to what we could do with that, whether we go ahead and do the same thing or whether we, get taken out or something along those lines. We don't know. We'd love to continue to drill and explore it and make it as big a deposit as we can, and then see where that takes us. And if that all happens, our shareholders are going to be extremely happy.
Great, thank you. We do have one more question, and it is one that I can answer. Terry is asking, will this webinar be available for replay, and how can individuals access it? Yes, we are recording this webinar, and we will upload it onto six.com immediately after. But yeah, that's all the questions we have at the moment. I would like to thank you, John and Sean, so much for going through your presentation and taking us through the live Q&A. I also want to thank everyone who submitted questions. If you think of a question afterwards, we will be sending out a brief survey where you can leave your contact information, and the Standard Uranium team will reach out to you directly. There's also more information on their website at standarduranium.ca. So I'll just pass it back to you both for the final word.
Great. Thanks, Dasha. And I also saw a comment pop up on the screen about thanking us for the work we're doing with our social media and showing investors and anyone that wants to find out what goes on in the exploration program. Sean and I have, spent a lot of time really trying to get behind the scenes and show you all the different aspects of what's happening up there. We did it last summer. We're doing it again. We're heading back up to site next week, and we're going to actually take time to go inside the drill rigs and show you what's going on safely. We're going to go into our core dome. We're going to talk to people up there at site, including Chief Teddy Clark, who is our partner up there. Chief Clark and I are going to sit down and answer questions we've been getting about, why it's important to have strong relationships with our First Nations partners and how strong our relationship is. So we look forward to doing those videos, sharing those with you on Twitter and on our website and YouTube. And if you have any videos that you want to see, any questions you want to ask us, fire away and we'll try to get those made for you. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dasha and Six. And thank you, Sean Hilliker, for giving us the technical answers we used today.